What happens when RoboCop, a law enforcement legend from another era, suddenly appears in the dangerous streets of Night City? In a world where corporations control the law, cyberware is everywhere, and justice can be bought, RoboCop finds himself completely out of his time. But his programming remains unchanged. Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. As he encounters cybercriminals, rogue netrunners, and a city overwhelmed by corruption, RoboCop must decide how to bring justice to a world that barely remembers what justice means. Can RoboCop survive Night City? And can Night City survive RoboCop? Let's begin. The rain in Night City does not cleanse. It merely smears the neon filth across the asphalt, like oil on a circuit board. It is a city where the soul is a commodity, and the flesh is a canvas for corporate branding. A place where the line between man and machine has been blurred into a jagged, bleeding edge. But into this world of hypervelocity chrome and digital ghosts, a relic of a different era arrives. Not with a flicker of data, but with the heavy, rhythmic thud of hydraulic actuators and the cold, green phosphor of an analog HUD. Alex Murphy, the OCP Crime Prevention Unit 001, opens his eyes to a reality he was never programmed to understand. He is a walking monument to a lost philosophy of law, a man who is more machine than human, yet possesses a moral rigidity that the mercenaries and fixers of 2077 would find laughably obsolete. This is the collision of two dystopias, the corporate feudalism of the future and the brutal, steel-clad justice of the past. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. The spice must flow. The first sensation is the smell, a nauseating cocktail of ozone, burnt plastic, and the copper tang of fresh blood. Murphy's systems cycle through a cold boot, the startup sequence a familiar, comforting ritual of diagnostic checks and directive flashes. Directive 1. Serve the public trust. Directive 2. Protect the innocent. Directive 3. Uphold the law. The fourth directive remains a shadowed block of encrypted code, a persistent itch in his silicon subconscious. His visor flickers, stabilizing as the low-light filters kick in. He is not in Detroit. He is in a cavernous, derelict warehouse in the north side of Watson, a district where the industrial rot of the 20th century has been paved over with the high-tech decay of the 21st. The air is thick with a digital haze, a shimmering layer of augmented reality advertisements for Mr. Stud and All Foods that his outdated processors struggle to render, resulting in jagged, pixelated artifacts dancing across his field of vision. Movement 10 meters ahead, Murphy's targeting reticle, a simple red box, snaps onto a figure hunched over a blood-slicked operating table. The figure is a scavenger, his face a mess of poorly integrated optical sensors and rusted metal plating. In his hand, a vibrating bone saw whirs, ready to harvest the high-end Kiroshi optics from a victim who is still very much conscious, though paralyzed by a neural jammer. Drop the weapon, Murphy's voice booms, a resonant, metallic baritone that vibrates in the stagnant air. You are under arrest. The scavenger freezes, but not out of fear. He turns, his mismatched eyes widening, as he takes in the sight of the Titan standing in the doorway. To a denizen of Night City, Murphy looks like a high-end, full-body conversion from a bygone age, bulky, slow, and devoid of the sleek, aerodynamic lines favored by modern solos. The scavenger sneers, a gesture that exposes chrome-plated teeth. Look at this retro garbage, the scavenger laughs, his voice a digitized rasp. What are you, some Arasaka museum piece? Hey, Chopper, we got some high-grade scrap metal in the lobby. 3 more figures emerge from the shadows of the warehouse. They are decorated in the grotesque fashion of the scavs, mismatched limbs, exposed wiring, and the frantic twitching energy of those who have spent too long on the edge of a combat stim high. One of them, a massive man with a hydraulic arm, raises a custom-built tech SMG. Hacking him now, a voice whispers from the corner. A netrunner, her eyes glowing a steady, eerie blue as she attempts to breach Murphy's internal systems. Murphy feels a strange sensation, like a swarm of insects crawling over his mind. In 2077, everything is connected. Every gun, every limb, Every breath is a node on the local network. But Murphy is an island of 1980s architecture. His brain is a proprietary blend of organic tissue and hardwired logic boards. There is no wireless port. There is no neural link. The Netrunner's short-circuit quick hack hits his firewall and simply slides off. It is like trying to upload a virus into a mechanical typewriter. Data breach failed, the Netrunner screams, her voice cracking with disbelief. I can't find a port. He's dark. He's totally dark. Last warning, Murphy says, his right thigh holster motorizing open with a sharp zip thud. He reaches down and draws the Auto 9, the sleek black machine pistol fitting perfectly into his oversized grip. Drop the weapon. You have 5 seconds to comply. The scavenger with the Tech SMG doesn't wait. He opens fire, the high-velocity rounds sparked by magnetic rails slamming into Murphy's chest plate. The impact is staggering. The 2077 ammunition has far more kinetic energy than the 9mm rounds of Murphy's era, but his titanium-laced armor holds. Spall and sparks fly as Murphy stands his ground, his internal gyros whining as they compensate for the force of the barrage. 4, 3, 2. The scavenger screams a war cry and lunges forward, his hydraulic arm whirring as he prepares a crushing blow. Murphy's targeting system calculates the trajectory in a fraction of a second. He doesn't move with the fluid, supernatural speed of a Sandevistan user. He moves with the inevitable, crushing precision of a piston. Target locked. Murphy fires. The Auto 9 barks in its signature 3-round bursts. The first burst catches the scavenger in his cybernetic shoulder, the heavy caliber rounds tearing through the cheap alloys and severing the hydraulic lines. A spray of synthetic fluid mists the air. The second burst finds the man's center mass, punching through a low-grade ballistic vest like it was made of paper. The third burst is a mercy, a clean shot through the head. The scavenger's body is thrown backward, his chrome sparking as it hits the floor. The warehouse falls into a stunned silence, broken only by the whirring of Murphy's cooling fans. Dead or alive, Murphy says, his visor panning toward the remaining criminals. You're coming with me. The Netrunner panics. She pulls a monowire from her wrist, the glowing, molecule-thin string whistling through the air as she lashes out. It's a weapon designed to slice through modern composites, and it leaves a glowing red score across Murphy's arm, biting deep into the outer plating. He feels the feedback, a sharp digital spike of pain, but he does not recoil. Instead, he reaches out with his left hand, his grip strength exceeding several tons, and catches the Netrunner by the throat. He lifts her off the ground. She kicks, her boots thudding uselessly against his armored abdomen. Her eyes are wide, reflecting the green police text flickering in the corner of his visor. Where is the local precinct? Murphy asks. Precinct? She gasps, her face turning a bruised shade of purple. The NCPD don't come here, you chrome-brained freak. This is Watson. We pay the badges to stay out. Murphy's internal processors stall for a microsecond. Pay the badges to stay out. The concept is a direct violation of his core directives. In his Detroit, the police were a corporate asset, yes, but they still functioned within a framework of municipal law. Here, the law appears to be a suggestion, a product bought and sold, like the organs on the table behind him. He drops the Netrunner. She collapses in a heap, gasping for air. Murphy turns toward the victim on the table, a young man, shivering, his eyes darting in terror. Murphy reaches out a heavy metal hand and gently touches the man's shoulder. You are safe, Murphy says, the tone of his voice softening just a fraction. Emergency services have been notified. He knows he is lying. His internal radio is scanning the frequencies, and all he hears is a chaotic roar of encrypted corporate chatter, advertisements, and screams. There is no dispatch. There is no backup. He is a lone officer in a city that has forgotten what an officer is. Murphy turns and walks toward the warehouse exit. His heavy boots crush the glass of a discarded Nicola bottle. As he pushes open the rusted corrugated doors, the full scale of Night City hits him. Towers of steel and glass reach like jagged teeth toward a toxic sky. Massive holographic koi fish swim through the air between skyscrapers. The noise is a physical weight, the throb of bass from distant clubs, the scream of AV-4s overhead, the relentless pulse of a civilization that has traded its soul for a better frame rate. He stands on the edge of the sidewalk, a silver ghost in a world of neon, His HUD scans the street, tagging hundreds of unlawful acts within seconds. Illegal cyberware, public intoxication, unlicensed weapon carry, corporate espionage in progress. The sheer volume of crime is enough to crash his tactical computer. But Alex Murphy does not crash. He recalibrates. He adjusts the grip on his Auto 9 and steps into the rain. Night City, he says to himself, the name appearing as a geotag on his map. You are under arrest. The walk from the industrial ruins of Northside to the nearest NCPD substation takes Murphy through a gauntlet of sensory violence. To the citizens of Night City, he is a walking anachronism. A group of moxes outside a neon pink club stop their conversation, their synthetic skin glowing in shades of pastel, as the heavy, rhythmic clank whir of Murphy's stride vibrates the pavement. They see the word police emblazoned in block letters across his chest plate and laugh, assuming he is some elaborate promotional stunt for a new retro braindance or a high-end Borg enthusiast who spent too many eddies on vintage aesthetics. Murphy ignores them. His sensors are fixed on the destination, highlighted by the city's public directory, the Watson North Precinct. As he moves, Murphy's internal systems struggle to categorize the sheer volume of data. Every flickering neon sign is an assault on his 20th century optics. Every passing Kusanagi bike is a blur of motion that his targeting computer tries to lead with ballistic trajectories. He notices the disparity between the high-threat warnings flashing on his HUD and the apathy of the populace. A man lies bleeding in a gutter, while others step over him to reach a vending machine selling Burrito XXS. Murphy pauses, his servos whining as he pivots to assist, but a scan reveals the man is stable, by Night City standards, merely a victim of a non-lethal neuroshock. Directive 1. Serve the public trust. The directive pulls at him, but his lack of a modern neural link means he cannot call for an ambulance. He continues toward the precinct, his heavy boots leaving deep imprints in the slush of trash and rainwater. The Watson North Precinct is a fortress of reinforced concrete and flickering holographic barriers. Outside, a line of desperate civilians huddles under a leaking awning, waiting for their chance to report crimes that will likely never be investigated. Murphy walks past them, his presence parting the crowd like a silver blade. The civilians fall silent, sensing the weight of the metal, the cold reality of a machine that doesn't just look like a cop, but is one. He pushes through the heavy security doors. The interior is a chaotic blend of high-tech efficiency and low-life grime. Drones hover near the ceiling, their red lenses scanning the lobby for concealed weapons. At the main desk, a sergeant sits behind a layer of bulletproof glass, his eyes replaced by glowing orange optics that dart back and forth as he scrolls through a digital ledger. Murphy approaches the glass. The thud of his footsteps silences the room. "I am Alex Murphy," he says, his voice cutting through the ambient hum of air conditioners and police scanners. "I am reporting for duty and seeking to file a report on a scavenger nest in Sector 4. The desk sergeant, a man whose badge identifies him as Officer Stacks, doesn't look up at first. "Sector 4? That's a combat zone, Chumba. We don't take reports for combat zones unless there's a corporate casualty or a Tier 1 insurance claim. You got a policy number?" "I am an officer of the law," Murphy repeats, his tone flattening. "I have neutralized 4 suspects engaged in illegal organ harvesting. I require a processing unit for the evidence." Stacks finally looks up. His orange eyes widen as he scans Murphy from head to toe. He sees the police marking, the heavy ballistic plating, and the oversized Auto 9 holstered in Murphy's leg. A slow, cynical grin spreads across his face, which is half covered by a chrome jaw plate. "Look at this," Stacks calls out to the other officers in the room. "We got ourselves a classic fan. What is that? The 87 OCP model? Where'd you find the kit, kid? It's a bit bulky for a solo, isn't it?" Must be a nightmare in a chase. "I am not a fan," Murphy says. He reaches out and slams his left hand onto the counter. The reinforced plastic cracks under the pressure. "I am a police officer. Check your personnel files. Badge number 001. Stacks laughs, a dry electronic sound. "Chum, the NCPD hasn't had personnel files in a decade. It's all subcontracted through Nightcorp and Militech. If you aren't on the payroll, you're just another Borg with a personality disorder. And right now, you're obstructing the lobby." Murphy's HUD flashes amber. Crime in progress, public indecency, officer conduct. He scans Stacks, his thermal and X-ray vision piercing through the officer's skin. He sees a heart rate elevated by reflex boosters and a liver struggling with cheap synthetic alcohol. But more importantly, he sees the officer's digital connection. Stax is currently receiving a stream of Eddie's Night City currency from a shell company labeled Kuro Technics. "You are accepting bribes," Murphy states. It isn't a question. The room goes cold. The other officers, who had been laughing, slowly reach for the grips of their Unity pistols. Stax's expression hardens, the orange glow of his eyes intensifying. "Careful, Tin Man," Stax whispers. "This isn't Detroit, and I don't care what your directives say. In this city, everyone's on a payroll. You want to play cop? Go join a private security firm in Charter Hill. Otherwise, get out of my precinct before I call MaxTac to haul you off for cyberpsychosis. Directive 3. Uphold the law." Murphy's logic processors are in a loop. The law is being violated by the lawkeepers. His programming is designed for a world where corruption is a bug in the system, not the system itself. He feels a surge of internal pressure, a phantom pain in his organic brain, the ghost of Alex Murphy screaming at the injustice. Suddenly, the precinct doors burst open. A woman stumbles in, her clothes torn, her face bruised. She collapses against the desk. "Please!" she cries. "They took my daughter. They're at the Totentans Club. Maelstrom, they're going to..." Stax doesn't even move. He sighs, looking back at his screen. "Maelstrom territory? Sorry, lady. That's outside our current contract. If you want a rescue op, you need to call Trauma Team or a freelance merc. NCPD doesn't do kidnappings in the North Side tonight. Budget cuts," the woman wails. A sound of pure, unadulterated grief that pierces through Murphy's tactical silence. He looks at her, and for a split second, his HUD flickers. The green text is replaced by a flash of a woman's face. Blonde hair, a kind smile. Ruth. The memory is gone in a millisecond, but the resolve it leaves behind is absolute. Murphy turns away from the desk. He walks toward the woman and places a heavy hand on her shoulder. "I will find her," Murphy says. "Hey, RetroCop!" Stax yells, standing up. "I told you to get out! You think you can just walk into Maelstrom turf with that pea shooter? You're gonna start a gang war we'll have to clean up." Murphy stops at the exit. He looks back at the officers of the NCPD. His HUD begins a deep system scan of the precinct's commanding officer, who has just emerged from a back office. The captain is a man named Gimes, his chest covered in medals that look like they were bought at a pawn shop. Scanning. Subject: Captain Gimes. Affiliation: NCPD/Arasaka, Associate Executive. As soon as the word Arasaka appears, Murphy's HUD turns a violent shade of red. Static hisses in his ears. His motor functions lock up for a terrifying second. Directive 4. Any attempt to arrest a senior officer of results in shutdown. The encryption is old, but the digital signature is unmistakable. In 2077, the OCP patent data, the very blueprints of Murphy's soul, belongs to the Arasaka Corporation. They bought the ruins of Omni Consumer Products a century ago. To Murphy's programming, every senior Arasaka executive is now a senior officer of OCP. Captain Gims sneers at Murphy. "What's the matter, scrap pile? System crash? Get this garbage out of here before I have it melted down for rebar." Murphy's internal fans roar as he fights the shutdown command. His organic heart beats against his titanium ribs. He cannot arrest Gimes. He cannot even raise a hand against him. But the woman is still crying. The innocent are still in danger. Murphy forces his leg to move, then the other. He overrides the shutdown by refocusing on Directive 2. If he cannot uphold the law within these walls, he will protect the innocent outside of them. "Thank you for your cooperation," Murphy says to the room, his voice a cold, mechanical rasp. He steps out into the rain. The Auto 9 is already in his hand. He doesn't need a precinct. He doesn't need a payroll. He has a destination. The Totentans. The Totentans is less a nightclub and more a cathedral of industrial masochism. Located deep in the heart of a condemned housing block in Northside, the air around the club vibrates with a low-frequency hum that rattles the teeth of anyone within 3 city blocks. For the Maelstrom gang, the club is sacred ground, a place where the meat is shed in favor of the divine chrome. As Murphy approaches, his acoustic sensors begin to clip. The music is a punishing wall of no-future techno, a cacophony of screeching metal and distorted bass designed to drown out the screams of those being modified in the back rooms. Murphy's HUD flickers, struggling to track the thermal signatures through the thick clouds of synthetic smoke and vaporized combat stimulants that drift from the club's entrance. Two Maelstrom sentries stand at the door. Their faces are horrifying voids of flesh, replaced by multi-lensed optical arrays that glow like clusters of angry red spiders. They are borged out to the point of cyberpsychosis, their limbs replaced by industrial-grade servos that twitch with restless energy. When they see Murphy, they don't see a man, or even a traditional cop. They see a museum piece. "Check the vintage frame on this one," the first sentry rasps, his voice synthesized into a robotic monotone. "Looks like a heavy-duty industrial loader with a badge." "Hey, scrap heap, you're in the wrong century. I am looking for a girl," Murphy says, his heavy boots coming to a halt. The sound of his servos is barely audible over the thump of the music. "Release her, and I will not be forced to use lethal measures." The sentries exchange a look, or the mechanical equivalent of one. They don't reach for guns, they reach for their neural links. In 2077, the most efficient way to kill a machine is to rewrite its mind. "Darklink him," the second sentry says. "Let's see what kind of ghost is rattling around in that bucket." Hidden in a darkened booth just past the entrance, a Maelstrom runner named Spiderbite initiates a breach. She is a specialist in ice breaking, her brain enhanced with high-end Arasaka-grade processors that allow her to navigate the local net with the speed of a digital predator. She sees Murphy's signal, or rather, the lack of one. He appears on her scanner, not as a node, but as a hole in the world. There is no Wi-Fi signature, no Bluetooth handshake, no encrypted handshake. "What the hell?" Spiderbite mutters, her eyes rolling back as she forces a direct infrared beam toward Murphy's visor. He's not on the net. He's analog? She attempts to force a synapse burnout via the infrared port. In her mind, she sees a vast, shimmering ocean of data, the black wall of modern Night City. She searches for a gateway into Murphy's systems, expecting to find the usual layered ice, intrusion countermeasure electronics. Instead, she hits a wall of solid lead. Murphy's internal architecture is a labyrinth of physical logic gates and shielded copper wiring. To Spiderbite, it's like trying to hack a brick with a laser pointer. She probes deeper, trying to find a software vulnerability, but she finds something far more terrifying, a human consciousness that has been hard-coded into the hardware. It isn't a digital soul like the one stored on the Arasaka relic. It is a physical brain, encased in a life support jar, screaming with the weight of 1,000 directives. Directive 3. Uphold the law. The directive hits Spiderbite's neural link like a physical blow. The sheer, uncompromising certainty of Murphy's purpose acts as a counterhack. She screams, clutching her head as her own neural processors overheat, trying to compute a morality that hasn't existed in Night City for half a century. "His mind!" she shrieks through the gang's internal comms. "It's not code? It's a fortress. I can't get in. Kill him. Just kill him." The sentries don't hesitate. One draws a Satara electromagnetic shotgun, the weapon humming as its capacitors charge. The other unsheathes a pair of thermal mantis blades that sizzle as they cut through the air. Murphy's targeting computer goes into high-speed acquisition mode. The strobe lights of the Totentans create a frame-by-frame nightmare, but his sensors are designed for the chaotic streets of old Detroit. He calculates the Maelstrommer's reflex speed. It's faster than anything he's ever faced. Superhuman, fueled by the Sandevistan implant. To Murphy, the ganger becomes a blur of motion. But Murphy has something the gangers don't. Ballistic predictability. He doesn't try to outrun the mantis blades. He pivots his torso, allowing the glowing orange blade to skid off his reinforced shoulder plating with a shower of sparks. The heat is intense, melting the top layer of his titanium alloy, but the structural integrity remains. As the ganger overextends, Murphy's left hand shoots out, catching the man's cybernetic forearm. Crunch. Murphy's grip strength, driven by industrial-grade hydraulics, exceeds the structural limits of the ganger's chrome. The metal arm collapses like a soda can, synthetic muscle fibers snapping and spraying cooling fluid. The ganger screams, a sound of static and pain. The second sentry fires the Satara. The slug, propelled by a magnetic rail, hits Murphy square in the chest. The force is enough to knock a normal man through a wall. Murphy staggers back 2 steps, his internal gyros whining as they fight to keep him upright. His chest plate is dented, a glowing red crater marking the impact point. Initial impact absorbed, Murphy's HUD reports in a calm, female voice. Integrity at 84%. Murphy raises the Auto 9. He doesn't fire wildly. He fires with the cold, mathematical precision of a machine. 3-round burst. The first shot hits the Satara, shattering the magnetic rail and causing the weapon to explode in the ganger's hands. The second and third shots catch the ganger in the neck, where the flesh meets the chrome. He falls instantly, his red spider eyes flickering out. The club's music doesn't stop, but the dance floor clears, as Maelstrom gangers realize they aren't dealing with a standard NCPD raid. They draw Lexington pistols and Ajax rifles, taking cover behind bars and pillars. "Release the girl," Murphy bellows, his voice amplified by his external speakers to a deafening roar. "You want the girl, Copper?" A voice echoes from the balcony above. A man with a massive, glowing red eye plate and a jaw made of polished steel leans over the railing. This is Brick, or what's left of him, after a dozen rebuilds. "She's being perfected. We're giving her the gift of the machine. By the time we're done, she won't even remember having a mother." Murphy scans the balcony. He sees the girl in a back room, strapped to a chair, a Ripper doc standing over her, with a set of neurosyringes. The girl's eyes are wide, her mouth moving in a silent plea for help. The memory of Ruth flashes again. "A man's got to be what he is, Alex." Murphy begins to walk. He doesn't take cover. He walks directly into the hail of gunfire, his heavy boots rhythmically thudding against the floor. Bullets spark off his helmet, his shins, his torso. He is a silver juggernaut, a relentless force of nature that refuses to acknowledge the meta of modern combat. He isn't using cover because he is the cover. Targeting multiple hostiles, Murphy's HUD announces. The Auto 9 begins to sing. It is a steady, rhythmic staccato that cuts through the chaotic chatter of the gang's weapons. Every burst finds a target. A ganger's knee joint shatters. Another's optical sensor is punched through. A third is caught mid-lunge. Murphy isn't just fighting. He is clearing a path. He reaches the stairs leading to the balcony. A Maelstromer, with a heavy Defender machine gun, opens fire from the top, the heavy rounds chewing into Murphy's arm. Murphy doesn't flinch. He reaches into his thigh holster, but instead of the gun, he pulls out his data spike, a long, sharp needle of hardened steel designed for interfacing with 20th century terminals. In this world, it's a primitive weapon. To Murphy, it's a tool of justice. He reaches the top of the stairs, the machine gunner, still screaming, as he pours lead into Murphy's frame. Murphy grabs the barrel of the gun, bends it upward with a single hand, and drives the data spike into the ganger's chest. The spike pierces through the cyber heart, short-circuiting the man's entire nervous system. Murphy turns toward the back room. The Ripper doc is trembling, the syringe halfway to the girl's neck. "Step away from the child," Murphy commands. The Ripper doc drops the needle. I was just following orders. Maelstrom, they paid me." Murphy ignores him. He approaches the girl and begins to unstrap her. His movements are surprisingly gentle for a man made of 300 pounds of metal. "It is over," Murphy says. "You are coming with me." The girl looks at him, her reflection small and terrified in his black visor. Are you a ghost?" "No," Murphy says, his servos whirring as he lifts her into his arms. "I am a police officer." As he turns to leave, his HUD flashes a new warning. A high-priority signal is approaching the club at Mach 1. It isn't Maelstrom. It's something much, much heavier. Threat level, extreme. Identified, MaxTac aerial transport. Night City's elite cyber psycho squad has arrived. And they don't care about the girl. They only see the Borg who just turned a Maelstrom club into a graveyard. The screech of the MaxTac AV-4's jet turbines is a sound that defines the hierarchy of Night City. It is the sound of the ultimate predator descending upon a lesser beast. Above the shattered roof of the Totentans, the heavy transport hovers, its spotlights cutting through the synthetic fog of the club like lances of white fire. For the first time since his arrival, Murphy's HUD does not just tag a threat, it screams a warning in a flickering, urgent red. His internal logic processors, rooted in the tactical realities of 20th century Detroit, recognize the overwhelming force. This is not a SWAT team. This is a paramilitary execution squad. The ceiling of the club's main hall shatters as three MaxTac operatives descend on fast ropes, their movements blurred by high-end Kerenzikov boosters. They hit the floor with a synchronized thud, their heavy, matte black armor absorbing the impact. Unlike the Maelstromers, who were a chaotic mess of exposed wiring and jagged metal, these soldiers are clinical. They are encased in high-grade composites, their faces hidden behind sleek, insectoid visors that pulse with a cold, blue data stream. Target identified. A voice crackles over the local comms, which Murphy's scanners intercept. Full body conversion. Unknown manufacturer. High lethality confirmed. Engaging with extreme prejudice. Cease your actions, Murphy bellows, shielding the girl with his massive frame. I am an officer of the law performing a rescue operation. I have civilians in my protection. The MaxTac lead, a woman whose movements are so fluid she seems to glide across the blood-slicked floor, doesn't respond with words. She raises a Militech Achilles tech rifle. The weapon hums, its capacitors whining as it prepares to fire a volley of armor-piercing slugs that can penetrate 2 feet of solid concrete. Directive 2. Protect the innocent, Murphy whispers to himself. He pushes the girl behind a reinforced structural pillar, his servos screaming as he positions his own body as a tactical barricade. The Achilles fires. The volley hits Murphy's back, plating with the force of a series of small explosions. The kinetic energy is staggering. Murphy is driven to one knee, his internal gyros vibrating violently as they fight to maintain his upright posture. The titanium alloy of his back, designed to stop 50 caliber rounds, is being chewed away by the high-frequency vibrations of the tech slugs. Integrity at 62%, his HUD warns. Coolant leak detected in left leg actuator. Murphy doesn't retreat. He pivots, the Auto 9 snapping into his hand with practiced, mechanical grace. He doesn't fire at the MaxTac officer's head. He fires at the floor beneath her feet. The 3-round burst shatters the industrial grating, causing the officer to stumble as her footing gives way. It is a tactical move, designed to buy seconds, not to kill. Murphy's programming still identifies these individuals as officers, even if they are acting with unlawful aggression. Identify yourselves. Murphy commands, his external speakers distorting under the strain. By whose authority do you engage a fellow officer? The MaxTac squad ignores the question. The second operative throws an EMP grenade. It skitters across the floor, hissing as it releases a concentrated burst of electromagnetic energy. In 2077, most Borgs have shielded nervous systems, but an EMP can still cause a momentary glitch or a reboot of non-essential systems. For Murphy, the effect is catastrophic. His vision explodes into white static. His auditory sensors emit a high-pitched whine that feels like a needle being driven into his brain. The analog-digital bridge that allows his organic mind to command his mechanical limbs begins to fail. He collapses forward, his hands hitting the floor with a heavy clang. His HUD flickers, the green text turning into a chaotic jumble of hexadecimal code. System failure. Rebooting. Directive 1. SIR. Directive 2. Pro. Directive 3. UPH. Through the static, he hears the heavy boots of the MaxTac operatives approaching. He feels a cold metal barrel being pressed against the back of his helmet. The mercy kill for a cyberpsycho. Wait! The voice is not local. It comes from a high-gain transmission that overrides the MaxTac comms. It is a voice of absolute pampered authority. A voice that belongs to someone who has never known the taste of unfiltered air. Hold your fire, MaxTac Team Alpha, the voice commands. This asset is under Arasaka litigation. He is not a cyberpsycho. He is intellectual property. Murphy's vision begins to clear. He sees a holographic projection shimmering in the air before him. It is a man in a tailored suit, his hair perfectly slicked back, his eyes replaced by glowing silver orbs that suggest a level of wealth that could buy a small country. This is Arthur Jenkins, a high-ranking executive in Arasaka's counterintelligence division. The MaxTac lead lowers her rifle, though her posture remains tense. This asset just neutralized 12 Maelstrom gangers and disrupted a sanctioned gang territory balance. Jenkins, he's a threat to public order. He is a miracle, Jenkins purrs, his holographic form walking around Murphy as if inspecting a prize stallion. Look at the manufacturing. No neural link, no wireless signature. He's an analog ghost. Do you have any idea what our R&D department would pay to study a sentient machine that can't be hacked? Murphy forces his head up. The green text of his HUD returns, but it is shaky. He sees the Arasaka logo floating next to Jenkins' name. Directive 4. Any attempt to arrest a senior officer of Arasaka results in shutdown. The directive is a cold weight in his mind. He cannot fight this man. He cannot even protest his presence. The corporate shackles forged in the 20th century by OCP have been inherited by the monsters of the 21st. I am not property, Murphy rasps, the words fighting against his own programming. Jenkins smiles, a thin, predatory expression. The legal records of the old United States say otherwise, Murphy. Arasaka acquired the OCP patent portfolio in the merger of 32. You are a biological and mechanical artifact of the company. You're coming home. Jenkins gestures to the MaxTac team. Secure him. Use the heavy-duty magnetic clamps. And find the girl. If she's seen his face, she's a witness to a corporate secret. Take care of it. At the mention of taking care of the girl, Murphy's Directive 2 flares like a sun. Protect the innocent. The conflict between Directive 2 and Directive 4 creates a feedback loop of agonizing intensity. His internal processors begin to smoke as they try to resolve the paradox. To obey Arasaka is to allow the girl to be murdered. To protect the girl is to defy his masters. The girl, huddling behind the pillar, looks at Murphy. You said I was safe, she whispers, her voice barely audible over the hum of the AV-4. Something inside Murphy, the part of him that was Alex Murphy, the husband of Ruth, the father of Jimmy, snaps. It isn't a line of code. It's a spark of human defiance that has survived decades of mechanical imprisonment. She is under my protection, Murphy growls. He lunges, not at the MaxTac officers, but at the AV-4's control tether that Jenkins' holographic projector is linked to. With a surge of hydraulic power that exceeds his safety limiters, Murphy rips the structural cable from the wall. The holographic projection of Jenkins flickers and dies as the local net connection is severed. Engage! Kill the Borg! The MaxTac lead screams. Murphy doesn't wait for them to fire. He grabs the girl, tucks her under his massive arm, and runs, not toward the exit, but toward the shattered roof. He doesn't have a Sandevistan, but he has the momentum of a 300-pound steel ram. He smashes through a brick wall, the debris raining down on the street below. He hits the pavement of Northside with a bone-shaking impact that shatters the suspension in his left ankle. He doesn't stop. He limps into the dark, rain-soaked alleys of the slums, his internal sensors searching for a place where the light of the neon can't find him. He is now a fugitive. He is a cop who has broken the law to save a life. He is a machine that has defied its creators. And in the towers above, the silver eyes of Arasaka are already recalculating. The shadows of Northside are long and thick, with the smell of wet garbage and industrial runoff. But for Alex Murphy, they are not a sanctuary. They are a tactical disadvantage. His internal map of Night City is a flickering, low-resolution wireframe, and his left leg drags with a rhythmic, metallic screech that sounds like a death knell against the pavement. The girl, whose name he has identified through a discarded school ID as Sarah, clings to his armored neck, her small hands trembling against the cold titanium. Murphy's HUD is a mess of warning icons. Hydraulic pressure critical. Coolant reservoir empty. Actuator overheat. He is a machine on the verge of a catastrophic seizure, yet he continues to move, driven by a ghost of a heart that refuses to stop beating for the innocent. He finds temporary shelter in the hollowed-out shell of a 20th century metro station, a place where the neon of the skyscrapers can only reach in thin, sickly slivers of violet. He sets Sarah down on a rusted bench, his servos whining in protest as he bends his knees. You must stay here, Murphy rasps, his vocal synthesizer crackling. I must recalibrate. You're leaking, Sarah whispers, pointing to the trail of blue-white synthetic fluid, trailing behind his dragging foot. Are you going to die? Again? Murphy pauses. The question bypasses his logic gates and strikes the center of his remaining organic tissue. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. He has lived that phrase for decades, but in this city of digital immortals and disposable bodies, the word dead feels like a luxury he hasn't been granted. Before he can answer, his sensors detect a ripple in the ambient static. A shadow detaches itself from the darkness of the tunnel. Hell of a show back there, Tin Man. Never seen MaxTac back down from a scrap because of a litigation claim. Murphy's Auto 9 is out and leveled at the stranger's chest in less than half a second, despite his damaged joints. Standing 10 meters away is a figure in a high-collared tactical vest, a glowing green optic scanning Murphy with professional curiosity. It is V, the mercenary whose name is currently whispered in every dark corner of the afterlife. Beside V, though invisible to the physical world, a flickering digital ghost in a silver arm and aviator shades leans against a pillar. V, look at this guy. Johnny Silverhand's voice echoes in V's mind, though Murphy's high-frequency sensors pick up a strange magnetic resonance. A ghost in the machine that shouldn't be there. He's not a Borg. He's a walking tombstone. OCP? I remember those corporate vampires. They were Arasaka before Arasaka knew how to bow tie a suit. Lower the weapon, V says, raising their hands in a non-threatening gesture. I'm not MaxTac, and I'm definitely not Arasaka. Actually, the guys in the suits are looking for me too. Enemy of my enemy, right? Murphy's HUD scans V. Threat assessment, variable, status, unknown, scanning for weapons. He sees the mantis blades tucked into V's forearms, the smart link in their palm, and the flickering, unstable signature of the relic in their brain. You are a mercenary, Murphy states. Directives state, I should arrest you for unlicensed combat cybernetics and involvement in multiple felonies. V smirks, stepping closer. Directives? Choom. Your directives are about 50 years out of date. Look at you. You're leaking oil. Your legs are wreck, and you've got a half-melted chest plate. You keep trying to play cop in this city, and you'll end up as a toaster in a junk shop within the hour. He's right, Alex, Johnny says, though V is the only one who can truly hear him. This city doesn't have cops. It has corporate enforcers and guys who are too poor to be criminals. You're a paradox. A machine with a conscience? Arasaka's going to dissect you just to find out where you keep the soul so they can patent it and sell it back to the masses. Murphy's arm tremors. He slowly lowers the Auto 9. His internal sensors are picking up the girl's heart rate. It's stabilizing, but she is cold. He looks at V. The child needs safety. Arasaka intends to liquidate the witness. V's expression softens. The mercenary knows what it's like to have a corporate target painted on their back. I know a place. A fixer I trust. We get her to a safe house, and then we find a Ripper doc who knows how to work on. Whatever the hell you are. My guy Victor, he's seen everything, even vintage Detroit iron. I have no currency, Murphy says. No, Eddie's. Consider it a pro bono job, V replies, tapping their temple. My passenger here thinks you're interesting. And I've always wanted to see what happens when an unstoppable lawman meets an immovable corporate city. The journey to the afterlife is a blur of high-speed transit and claustrophobic alleys. V handles the girl with a surprising tenderness, while Murphy focuses on maintaining his motor functions. Every step is a battle against his own gravity. As they reach the outskirts of the legendary Merc Club, Murphy feels the weight of the city pressing down on him. The neon isn't just light, it's a cage. They don't enter through the front. V leads them through a service tunnel that smells of stale beer and expensive tobacco. Inside, the afterlife is a cathedral of sin, a place where the elite of the underworld drink to their own survival. The music is a low, thrumming pulse, and the air is blue with smoke. When Murphy enters, the room goes dead silent. Hardened mercenaries, men and women who have faced down Militech tanks and psycho squads, freeze mid-drink. They look at Murphy, the heavy silver frame, the black visor, the police lettering that should be a death sentence in a place like this. But there is no laughter. There is only a primal, lizard brain recognition of a predator. Is that? A Solo whispers, his hand hovering over a Malorian pistol. That's a myth, another replies. The ghost of old Detroit. V leads Murphy to a back booth where a woman with sharp, calculating eyes sits. Rogue Amendiares, the queen of fixers, looks at Murphy and doesn't blink. She's seen ghosts before. She's seen Johnny Silverhand die. V, Rogue says, her voice like sandpaper on velvet. You brought a cop into my club. Not just any cop. You brought the law. He's not a cop anymore, Rogue, V says, sliding into the booth. He's a fugitive. Arasaka wants him back, and he's got a kid who needs a ticket out of the city. Murphy stands behind the booth, a silent sentinel. Sarah has fallen asleep against his armored leg. her head resting on a tactical pouch. Murphy looks at Rogue, his visor reflecting the neon afterlife sign. "I am Alex Murphy," he says. "I require assistance in upholding Directive 2. The cost is irrelevant." Rogue looks at the girl, then back at the machine. "In this city, Murphy, everything has a cost. But Arasaka's been getting too comfortable lately. They think they own the past and the future. Maybe it's time someone reminded them that the present is still up for grabs." She taps her terminal. "The girl goes to a nomad convoy tonight. They'll take her across the border, into the Badlands. Arasaka's reach is short once you hit the sand. As for you," Rogue pauses, her eyes narrowing. "You're a walking war crime, Murphy. If you stay in the city, you're a target. If you leave, you're just scrap metal. What do you want?" Murphy looks at his own metal hands. He thinks of the scavengers, the maelstrom, the corrupt officers at the precinct, and the cold silver eyes of Arthur Jenkins. He thinks of the law he was built to serve, and the justice this city has forgotten. "I want to finish the investigation," Murphy says. "I want to see the law applied to those who believe themselves above it." Johnny Silverhand appears on the edge of the booth, a grin spreading across his digital face. "I like him, V. He's got the same delusion I had. He thinks one man, or one machine, can burn the system down just by standing in the middle of it." "V," Johnny continues, lighting a phantom cigarette. "Tell the Tin Man we're in. If we're going to Arasaka Tower anyway, we might as well bring the only honest cop left in the world." Murphy's HUD flickers. A new geotag appears. "Arasaka Tower. Directives updated," Murphy says, the Auto 9 clicking as he clears a jam in the chamber. The investigation continues. The basement of Victor Vector's clinic in Little China smells of antiseptic, ozone, and old leather. A sanctuary of silence beneath the neon roar of the city. For the first time since his reconstruction in the 20th century, Alex Murphy is powered down, his massive frame supported by a heavy-duty industrial lift, usually reserved for combat-class Borgs. Victor, the world-weary Ripperdoc, wipes a smudge of synthetic blood from his spectacles, peering into the open chest cavity of the OCP Crime Prevention Unit. He isn't looking at the sleek fiber-optic bundles of a modern Arasaka build. He is looking at heavy-gauge copper wiring, pneumatic pumps, and a central processing unit that occupies more physical space than a modern handheld terminal. "It's beautiful, V," Victor whispers, his voice echoing in the small room. "It's like looking at the blueprints of a cathedral, built before the invention of the crane. There's no backdoors here, no neural link for a netrunner to exploit. It's hardwired logic. To hack him, you'd need a screwdriver and a soldering iron, not a deck." V stands by the monitors, watching the flickering green readout of Murphy's remaining organic vitals. "Can you fix the leg, Vic?" He's dragging it like a broken toy. "I can do better than fix it," Victor says, reaching for a crate of high-end Militech actuators. "I'm retrofitting his joints with modern shock absorbers and reinforced polymer tendons. He won't be faster. His CPU can't handle the reflex boost, but he'll be unstoppable. He won't just walk through walls. He'll wear them." Suddenly, Murphy's visor pulses. The startup chime is a low, resonant chord that vibrates the floorboards. His head swivels, sensors locking onto V. "Recalibration complete," Murphy's voice booms. "Smoother now. The mechanical rattle gone. I have identified the primary suspect in the Arasaka OCP conspiracy, Arthur Jenkins, Senior Executive, Counterintelligence. Charges: conspiracy to commit murder, illegal detention of a minor, and violation of public trust." "Whoa, slow down, Big Iron," V says, stepping forward. "Jenkins isn't just some street punk. He lives in a fortress in Charter Hill. He's got more security than most third-world dictators. You can't just walk in and slap cuffs on him." "I do not slap cuffs," Murphy states, his servos whirring as he steps off the lift. His footfalls are silent now, the new Militech dampeners working perfectly. "I inform the suspect of their rights, and I escort them to a holding facility. If they resist, I am authorized to use necessary force." Johnny Silverhand flickers into existence next to Murphy, his digital face twisted in a grin of pure, malicious glee. "Necessary force. I love it." V. The Tin Man wants to perform a citizen's arrest on a suit in the middle of Charter Hill. It's the most suicidal, beautiful thing I've ever heard. Imagine the optics. A relic of the old world dragging a modern corporate god through the mud. "It'll start a war," V mutters. The NCPD, Militech, Arasaka, they'll all converge on us. The war has already begun, Murphy says, the Auto 9 sliding into his hand with a click that sounds like a closing coffin. The law is not a suggestion. It is the foundation of civilization. If the foundation is rotten, it must be replaced. The mission to Charter Hill is a descent into a different kind of hell, the hell of the ultra-rich. Here, the air is filtered, the trees are real, and the security is invisible until it's too late. V drives the Quadra Type 66, the engine roaring as they bypass the automated checkpoints using a high-end spoofing program provided by Rogue. Murphy sits in the passenger seat, his bulk forcing the frame of the car to tilt. He is silent, his visor scanning the high-rise penthouses for heat signatures and biometric matches. They find Jenkins at a corporate synergy gala, an event held at a glass-walled pavilion overlooking the city. Below, millions starve in the neon rain. Here, executives sip synthetic champagne and discuss the quarterly projections for human suffering. Murphy does not wait for a tactical opening. He does not use a silencer. He steps out of the car and walks toward the main entrance. Two private security guards in sleek white Arasaka combat suits step forward, their rifles leveled. "Clear the area, civilian," the lead guard commands. "This is a private." "I am a police officer," Murphy interrupts, his external speakers set to a volume that cracks the nearby glass. "I have a warrant for the arrest of Arthur Jenkins. Stand aside, or you will be charged with obstruction of justice." The guards don't laugh. There is something about the way Murphy stands, the absolute lack of hesitation, the weight of the metal, that triggers a primal fear. They open fire. The smart bullets curve through the air, seeking Murphy's heat signatures, but they hit his new reinforced plating and flatten harmlessly. Murphy doesn't fire back. He simply walks through the hail of lead, grabs the barrels of their rifles, and twists them into scrap metal with a single, casual motion. He kicks the double doors open. The music stops. The synergy dies. Hundreds of the city's most powerful people turn to see a silver titan standing in the doorway, the light of the chandeliers reflecting off his black visor. "Arthur Jenkins," Murphy bellows. Jenkins, standing near the bar with a glass in his hand, pales. He looks around for his MaxTac escort, but they are stationed on the roof, minutes away. You're supposed to be in a scrapyard. Security, kill it now." "Arthur Jenkins, you are under arrest," Murphy says, his heavy boots thudding across the marble floor. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." "A court of law?" Jenkins shrieks, backing away. "I am the law. Arasaka is the law. You're a glitch, a ghost. You don't even exist." Murphy reaches him. A bodyguard lunges forward with a monowire, but Murphy catches the wire in his left hand, the new polymer coating resisting the cut, and pulls the man off his feet, tossing him through a glass table. Murphy's right hand closes around Jenkins' expensive silk collar. "You have the right to an attorney," Murphy continues, his voice calm and terrifying. "If you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you, though I suspect your corporate accounts will be frozen pending investigation." He begins to drag Jenkins toward the exit. The gala erupts into chaos. Guests scream and scramble for the exits, while automated turrets begin to descend from the ceiling. "V, get the car!" Johnny yells, his holographic form dancing on the tables. "The party's over, and the neighbors are calling the cops." Outside, the sky is already filled with the blue and red strobes of NCPD cruisers and the heavy black shapes of Arasaka gunships. The arrest of a senior executive is a level 5 threat. Within seconds, every mercenary, cop, and corporate drone in the city is given a single directive: eliminate the Silver Borg. Recover the executive. Directives updated, Murphy says, his HUD showing a map of the city turning into a solid block of red hostile markers. Escape is mandatory to ensure the suspect faces trial. Trial? V screams, slamming the Quadra into gear as Murphy tosses a sobbing Jenkins into the back seat. "Murphy, there are no trials in Night City for guys like him. There's only a hole in the ground or a seat on the board. Then we will build a court," Murphy says, the Auto 9 firing out the window at an approaching drone. The manhunt has begun. A machine and a mercenary, dragging the heart of Arasaka through the veins of a city that wants them dead. The sky over Night City is not a canopy of stars, but a bruised horizon of smog and data streams. illuminated by the strobe light pulses of 1,000 police sirens. V's Quadra Type 66 screams through the elevated transit tunnels of Westbrook. The engines roar, a desperate counterpoint to the thrumming jet turbines of the Arasaka Kujira gunships circling above. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere is thick with the smell of scorched upholstery and the copper tang of fear. Arthur Jenkins is huddled on the floorboards, his tailor-made suit stained with the hydraulic fluid leaking from Murphy's joints. His silver cyber eyes darting frantically as he realizes the corporate invincibility he's worn like a cloak for decades has just been stripped away by a ghost from 1987. "You're dead, both of you," Jenkins shrieks, his voice cracking as the car swerves to avoid a barrage of smart missiles that detonate against a bridge pillar behind them. "The moment we stop, the moment Arasaka finds a lock on your biometric signature, they'll flatline this entire block just to get me back. You're not cops, you're terrorists?" "Quiet suspect," Murphy says, his head swiveling 180 degrees to track an incoming swarm of pursuit drones. The Auto 9 barks. Click-clack boom. Each 3-round burst a masterpiece of ballistic geometry. He doesn't miss. A drone explodes into a shower of sparks. A second spirals out of control, its rotors severed. A third is punched through its central processor, falling like a lead weight into the traffic below. "Directives are clear," Murphy continues, his voice unyielding even as a smart bullet skids across his visor, leaving a jagged white scar across the glass. "The suspect will be transported to a secure location for interrogation. Obstruction of this process will be met with lethal force." "V the bridge!" Johnny Silverhand yells, his digital form flickering in the passenger seat, his phantom hand pointing toward a blockade of NCPD cruisers and heavy behemoth riot trucks blocking the exit to Northside. "The badges are setting up a kill box. They aren't trying to arrest you, Murphy. They're trying to delete you." V grinds the gears, the Quadra's tires smoking as they drift around a jackknife tanker. "I see it. Murphy, I'm taking us off-road." There's an old construction tunnel under the bridge. Leads to the foundations of the old city. If we can get underground, the gunships lose their lock. "Underground," Murphy repeats. His HUD flickers violently. A warning icon in the shape of the Arasaka logo begins to pulse at the center of his vision. Directive 4. Any attempt to restrain or harm a senior officer of Arasaka results in system shutdown. The code, ancient and insidious, has finally caught up with his processors. As he holds Jenkins by the shoulder, the ownership protocols of the Arasaka OCP merger begin to flood his motor control center. Murphy's arm begins to twitch, the servos locking in a staccato rhythm of mechanical seizure. His vision blurs into a red-tinted hexadecimal hell. "System failure," Murphy rasps, his vocal synthesizer slowing down until his voice is a deep, distorted growl. "Arasaka, priority." "Override, Murphy." "Murphy, talk to me!" V screams, glancing over. The mercenary sees the Silver Titan's head loll back, sparks showering from the seams of his neck plating. Murphy's hand, which had been a vice around Jenkins, begins to go limp. "He's crashing!" Johnny shouts. The suits are hitting his off switch remotely. "V, if he shuts down, we're just sitting ducks with a very angry executive." Jenkins sees his opening. He sneers, a predatory light returning to his eyes. "That's it, you bucket of bolts. Know your master. I am Arasaka. I am your god." He reaches for a hidden panic transmitter in his cufflink. But Alex Murphy was never just a machine. Beneath the layers of titanium, beneath the hardwired logic gates, and the proprietary OCP code, there is a piece of a man who once stood in a rain-soaked alley in Detroit and refused to die. The organic remnants of Murphy's brain, the parietal lobe that remembers the weight of a badge, the amygdala that still feels the heat of his wife's hand, surge with a chemical defiance that no digital ice can contain. In a display of sheer, biological willpower, Murphy slams his left hand into his own chest plate. The sound is like a sledgehammer hitting an anvil. He isn't trying to fix himself. He's short-circuiting the override. He drives his data spike directly into his own diagnostic port, bypassing the software layer entirely and forcing his limbs into a hardwired manual mode. "Override denied," Murphy bellows, his visor flaring with a brilliant, defiant green light. He grabs Jenkins again, his grip so tight the executive's collarbone begins to crack. "You are coming with me, dead or alive." V steers the Quadra into a terrifying nosedive off the side of the embankment, crashing through a chain-link fence and plunging into the darkness of the construction tunnels. The sound of the gunships fades, replaced by the echoing roar of the engine in the confined space. They bounce over piles of rubble and discarded rebar, the suspension screaming, until finally, they skid to a halt in a cavernous underground chamber, a forgotten hub of the 2020 expansion that was abandoned after the Fourth Corporate War. V kills the lights. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and the heavy, rhythmic breathing of the three passengers. "We're clear," V whispers, leaning their head back against the seat. "For now. My scanners say the gunships are circling topside, but they haven't sent the drones down yet. They're scared of the interference from the old magnetic shielding in these walls." Murphy pushes the door open, his movements stiff but functional. He drags Jenkins out of the car and throws him onto a rusted metal crate. The executive collapses, sobbing now, the realization of his predicament finally sinking in. "Why?" Jenkins moans, looking up at Murphy. "Why are you doing this? You could have had everything. Arasaka would have polished you, upgraded you. You could have lived forever as a legend of the security division. Instead, you're just trash in a tunnel." Murphy stands over him, a towering silhouette of silver and shadow. He looks at the police marking on his chest, now scarred by bullets and grime. He looks at V, a mercenary dying of a digital ghost in their head, and at Johnny, a rebel who burned a city just to feel something. "I am a police officer," Murphy says, and for the first time, there is a hint of something resembling a smile in the cadence of his voice. "I do not seek upgrades. I seek the truth. And the truth of Night City is that the law has been replaced by a price tag. I am here to re-establish the market." V walks to the edge of the chamber, looking up at a distant grate where the neon of the city flickers like a dying star. "So what's the plan, officer? We can't sit here forever. Smasher is coming. I can feel it. Arasaka doesn't let things like this slide." "We will not sit," Murphy says, checking the magazine of the Auto 9. "We will broadcast. In the old world, a trial required a jury of one's peers. In this world, the peers are the millions watching the scream sheets. We will use the suspect's own neural link to dump his personal files, the murders, the bribes, the liquidation orders, directly onto the public net. A public execution of his reputation," Johnny says, cackling. "I love it. It's better than a nuke. You're going to turn every citizen of Night City into a judge. The evidence is sufficient," Murphy states. "V, prepare the link. Suspect, you are about to be processed." As V approaches Jenkins with a neural jack, a low mechanical rumble vibrates through the floor. It isn't a car. It isn't a drone. It is the sound of heavy, armored footsteps, steps that carry the weight of 1,000 kills. At the far end of the tunnel, a pair of glowing red eyes flickers to life. "Target sighted," a voice booms. A voice that sounds like grinding metal and nightmare. "Alex Murphy, you have something that belongs to the company. Atom Smasher has arrived." The sound of Atom Smasher's approach is not the rhythmic clanking of a machine. It is a series of seismic events that rattle the very foundations of the old city. Out of the darkness of the construction tunnel, the monster emerges, a towering 600-pound nightmare of chrome and blackened carbon fiber. Smasher is not a man in a suit. He is a weapon that has discarded the weakness of flesh entirely, leaving only a brain case suspended in a sea of combat-grade synthetic fluids. His red optical sensors glow with a predatory hunger, tracking the heat signatures of V, the whimpering Jenkins, and the silver titan standing between them. "So?" Smasher rasps, his voice a distorted, multi-tonal growl that echoes off the damp concrete walls. "This is the old guard. You look like you were built to patrol a shopping mall, Murphy. I've seen refrigerators with more sophisticated cooling systems." "Atom Smasher," Murphy states, his Auto 9 already leveled with terrifying stillness. "You are an accessory to the crimes of Arthur Jenkins. You are also under investigation for multiple counts of first-degree murder and crimes against humanity. Power down and prepare for processing." Smasher's laughter is a sound of grinding gears and static. "Processing? The only thing being processed today is your chassis into a cube of scrap metal. Arasaka wants the relic in the Merc's head, and they want the executive back. You're just a curiosity I've been cleared to dismantle." In a blur of motion that Murphy's 20th century optics can barely register, Smasher activates his Sandevistan. To the human eye, he disappears. To Murphy, the world becomes a series of high-speed frames. He sees the ripple in the air, the displacement of dust, the sudden flare of thermal energy as Smasher's thrusters kick in. Target acquisition. Predictive algorithm engaged. Murphy doesn't try to track Smasher's current position. He calculates the trajectory. He fires the Auto 9 at the empty air, 3 feet to his left. The 3-round burst hits Smasher's shoulder-mounted missile rack, just as the cyborg materializes there. The explosion is small but significant, throwing off Smasher's balance and forcing him out of his hyper-accelerated state. "Smart," Smasher growls, skidding across the floor, his heavy claws digging furrows into the stone. "You've got a good tactical processor for a relic, but let's see how you handle modern firepower." Smasher raises his right arm, and the heavy machine gun integrated into his forearm begins to spit fire. The heavy caliber rounds chew into the stone pillars, sending shards of granite flying like shrapnel. Murphy steps in front of V and Jenkins, his boots locking into the floor, his internal gyros screaming as he absorbs the impact of the rounds. Integrity, 54%. Armor penetration detected in right pectoral zone. "V, get the data out," Johnny Silverhand yells, his holographic form flickering violently as Smasher's proximity ice begins to scramble the local airwaves. The Tin Man can't hold him forever. Smasher is a walking tank, and Murphy's running on vintage batteries and a prayer. V is frantically jacking into Jenkins' neural port, their hands shaking. "The encryption is insane, Johnny. It's Arasaka black ice. I need more time. I will provide it," Murphy says. He lunges. He doesn't have a Sandevistan, but he has the momentum of a falling mountain. He smashes into Smasher, the sound of the collision, like two trains colliding head-on. They grapple, Murphy's hydraulic grip closing around Smasher's neck, while Smasher's massive hands tear at Murphy's chest plate. "You're a freak, Murphy!" Smasher roars, driving a knee into Murphy's midsection, bucking the titanium plating. "You still think you're a man. You still try to save the meat. That's why you'll lose. Evolution belongs to those who cut the heart out." "I am a police officer," Murphy rasps, his vocal synthesizer sparking. "The heart is the only part that matters." Murphy drives his data spike towards Smasher's central brain case. Smasher catches the spike in midair, the sound of metal grinding on metal filling the tunnel. With a surge of unnatural strength, Smasher twists Murphy's arm, the joints popping and spraying blue hydraulic fluid. He throws Murphy across the chamber, sending him crashing into a pile of rusted rebar. Murphy's HUD is a waterfall of red warnings. Actuator failure. Optic sensor gimbal malfunction. Power core at 15%. Through the blur, he sees Smasher turning toward V and the terrified Jenkins. "Enough games," Smasher says, his shoulder-mounted launcher swiveling toward the Quadra Type 66. "Kill the Merc, recover the suit, and I'll take my bonus in high-grade chrome." "Directive 2!" Murphy bellows, the sound amplified by his emergency speakers. He reaches out and grabs a heavy power cable hanging from the ceiling. A relic of the abandoned construction project that is still carrying a massive, unshielded current to the surface grid. With a final, desperate surge of his remaining power, Murphy heaves the cable like a whip. The cable wraps around Smasher's legs, just as he fires his thrusters. The result is a spectacular, blinding arc of blue electricity. 50,000 volts of raw Night City power surge through Smasher's combat chassis. The cyborg screams, his internal systems short-circuiting, his red optics flickering into a panicked strobing. Murphy isn't immune. The current flows through the cable into his own metal frame, cooking his organic components, melting the insulation on his wiring. He feels the ghost of Alex Murphy burning, the memories of his life flashing before his eyes like a dying brain dance. He sees Ruth. He sees the sun over a Detroit skyline that no longer exists. Rebooting, the explosion of light fades. Smasher is on his knees, smoke rising from his joints, his systems locked in a hard reboot. He isn't dead. Smasher is too much machine to die so easily, but he is stunned. "V," Murphy croaks, his visor cracked and dark. "The evidence?" V slams their fist onto the terminal. "It's out! Johnny, we did it! The files are hitting the net!" Every news agency, every fixer, Every scream sheet in Night City just got a front row seat to Jenkins' private collection of war crimes. On the skyscrapers above, the holographic koi fish and soda advertisements vanish. They are replaced by a scrolling list of names, the victims of Arasaka's asset liquidation programs. Video clips of Jenkins ordering the murder of Sarah's parents and dozens of others begin to loop on every screen in the city. The digital mask of Arasaka has been torn away, and for the first time in 50 years, the city is seeing the monsters behind the suits. Jenkins? V says, looking at the executive, who is now staring in horror at his own neural link reflecting the global broadcast. You aren't a god anymore. You're just a file. In the distance, the sirens are changing. They aren't just coming for Murphy anymore. The public outrage is triggering a systemic failure. Protests are erupting in the streets of Haywood and Santo Domingo. The NCPD, their private contracts suddenly under intense public scrutiny, are beginning to hesitate. But in the tunnel, the battle isn't over. Atom Smasher's red eyes flicker back to a steady, murderous glow. You think a data dump matters? Smasher whispers, his voice low and vibrating with a new level of hatred. Arasaka will kill the reporters. They'll edit the net. They'll erase the truth. But first, I'm going to erase you. Smasher stands up, his scorched armor shedding flakes of carbon. He prepares to finish the job. But Murphy is already standing. He is leaning against a pillar, his left arm uselessly hanging at his side, his armor a ruin of blackened metal. Yet, he raises the Auto 9 with his right hand. The aim is as steady as the day he took his oath. The truth is already out, Murphy says, and the law is coming. The air in the construction tunnel is no longer stagnant. It is charged with the ozone of electrical fires and the scorched metal scent of a dying titan. Atom Smasher stands fully upright, his scorched carbon fiber plates hissing as internal cooling systems struggle to dump the massive thermal load from Murphy's high-voltage gambit. His red optical sensors have narrowed into pinpricks of murderous light. He doesn't lunge this time. He walks, each step a deliberate, heavy thud that cracks the concrete floor. He is a predator who knows his prey has no place left to run. You're a stubborn piece of scrap, I'll give you that, Smasher rumbles, his voice now a terrifying mix of organic growl and distorted electronic scream. But you're out of juice, Murphy. Your actuators are seizing, your armor is paper thin, and your precious net dump? It's a drop of water in a desert of corporate apathy. Arasaka will buy the silence of the survivors. They'll edit the history books before the sun comes up. And you won't even be a footnote. The truth is not a footnote, Murphy rasps. His left arm hangs uselessly, a tangle of severed fiber optics and dripping fluid. His visor is cracked, a jagged line bisecting his vision, but the green text of his HUD remains steady. Directive 3, uphold the law. It is the record, and the record is permanent. Johnny, he's going to die, V whispers, standing near the back of the chamber, gripping their pistol with white-knuckled intensity. Smasher is going to tear him apart. Maybe, Johnny Silverhand says, his holographic form standing amidst the wreckage, his eyes fixed on Murphy. But look at him, V. Really look at him. Smasher is all machine, trying to pretend he's a god. Murphy is a man, refusing to admit he's a machine. That's the glitch in the system. That's why Arasaka is afraid of him. Smasher lunges. He doesn't use the Sandevistan. It's fried from the surge, but his raw, hydraulic strength is still overwhelming. He swings a massive clawed hand, a blow that would decapitate a normal man. Murphy ducks, the movement stiff and agonizingly slow, the metal of his neck joint screeching. The claw whistles over his head, smashing into a structural pillar and sending a spray of stone shards into the air. Murphy counters. He doesn't use the Auto 9. He drives his right fist, backed by the last of his emergency battery reserves, into the breach in Smasher's chest armor, the spot where the electrical arc softened the composite plates. The impact sounds like a cannon shot. Smasher staggers back, a grunt of genuine pain escaping his vocal synthesizer. You touched the core, Smasher whispers, his optics flickering. Impossible. I have a clear line of sight, Murphy says. He raises the Auto 9. His targeting reticle is jumping, the calibration sensors failing, as his power levels drop to 5%. He doesn't have the luxury of a 3-round burst. He switches the weapon to manual single-fire mode. Click, clack. Smasher roars and activates his shoulder-mounted rocket pod. Die in the dark, you ancient fossil. The micro-missiles streak across the chamber. Murphy doesn't move. He doesn't take cover. He stands his ground, the final wall between the monster and the innocent. He fires. The single round from the Auto 9 meets the first missile mid-air, a scant 3 meters from Murphy's chest. The resulting explosion is a blinding wall of fire that consumes the remaining missiles in a chain reaction. The shockwave throws Murphy backward, his back slamming into the rusted side of V's Quadra. He falls to his knees, sparks showering from his helmet. Critical system failure. Total shutdown imminent. Smasher emerges from the smoke, his blackened frame missing its left shoulder, his chest cavity open and weeping synthetic fluids. He is a ruin of a man-machine, but he is still moving. He reaches Murphy and grabs him by the throat, lifting him into the air with a single hand. Look at you, Smasher sneers, his red eyes inches from Murphy's cracked visor. Broken. Empty. A failure. Where is your law now? Where is your justice? Murphy's right hand slowly moves. It doesn't reach for a gun. It reaches for Smasher's head. His metal fingers close around the carbon fiber casing of Smasher's brain pod. The law, Murphy whispers, his voice barely a mechanical sigh, is not in the machine. Murphy activates his data spike. But he doesn't try to hack Smasher. He uses the spike as a physical conductor. He reroutes the last volatile spark of his own life support battery, the energy keeping his organic brain alive, and dumps it directly into Smasher's unprotected neural processor. It is a suicidal discharge. A brilliant white-hot arc of bioelectrical energy leaps from Murphy's hand into Smasher's skull. Smasher's entire body stiffens. His red optics turn white, then explode in a spray of glass and sparks. A scream, both human and digital, tears from Smasher's throat, as his mind is flooded with 30 years of Murphy's memories. The birth of his son, the face of his wife, the oath he took to the city, and the crushing weight of every life he couldn't save. The ghost of Alex Murphy becomes a virus. It is a flood of humanity that Smasher's cold, sociopathic architecture cannot process. The cyborg's central nervous system undergoes a total, irreversible collapse. Smasher drops Murphy. The massive cyborg falls backward, his limbs twitching in a grotesque parody of a seizure, before he hits the floor and goes still. The red lights of his optics fade into darkness. The boogeyman of Night City is silent. Murphy lies on the concrete, his armor a blackened husk. His HUD is dark. The green text is gone. There is only the sound of his own ragged, organic breathing, echoing inside the hollow chamber of his helmet. Runs to him, kneeling in the pool of oil and blood. Murphy! Murphy! Can you hear me? Stay with me, Big Iron. We're getting you out of here. V! Murphy croaks. His voice is human now, devoid of the metallic resonance. The synthesizer completely dead. The girl? She's safe, Alex, V says, their voice breaking. Rogue's people got her to the Badlands. She's across the border. And the data? It's everywhere. The city is rising up. People are at the gates of Arasaka Tower right now. You did it. You actually did it. Murphy's head rolls to the side. Through the cracks in his visor, he sees the distant glow of the city above. The neon lights of a world he never understood, but one he chose to protect anyway. Directive 2, Murphy whispers. Innocent, protected. His eyes close. The whirring of his internal fans slows, then stops. The rhythmic thud whir of his existence falls into a final, peaceful silence. Johnny Silverhand stands over the fallen lawman, his holographic hand hovering over Murphy's chest. For the first time in 50 years, Johnny has nothing cynical to say. He removes his aviators and looks at the silver frame with a grim, respectful nod. You weren't a cop, Murphy, Johnny says quietly. You were the only person in this godforsaken city who was actually free. But in the silence of the tunnel, something begins to happen. A small, blue light flickers on Murphy's chest. Not an OCP light, but a modern Arasaka relic pulse. The data spike Murphy drove into Smasher's head didn't just kill the cyborg, it created a bridge. Above, in the sprawl of Night City, the screens are still scrolling with Jenkins' crimes. But a new image appears. A wireframe of a man. A badge. A name. The legend of the Silver Ghost is just beginning. The silence that follows the fall of Atom Smasher is not a peaceful one. It is the heavy, suffocating quiet of a vacuum, created by the sudden death of a god. In the dark construction tunnel, the only light comes from the flickering sparks of Smasher's ruined chassis and the rhythmic azure pulse of the relic in V's brain. V kneels over the blackened, motionless form of Alex Murphy. The Silver Titan, once a relentless force of kinetic law, is now a cold monument of scarred titanium. His visor is a dark void. His breath has stopped. The man who refused to be a machine has finally found the peace that Night City denies the living. "Vic, get the van down here," V says into their holocall, their voice trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and grief. "I've got him, and I've got Smasher's head. But Murphy, he's gone, Vic. He burned out his core to stop the monster." But as V reaches out to touch Murphy's chest plate, the blue pulse intensifies. It isn't just a signal, it's a transfer. Murphy's final discharge into Smasher's neural link didn't just fry the cyborg, it opened a two-way door. The Arasaka technology within Smasher, designed to interface with the Soul Killer program, had inadvertently captured the final, desperate surge of Murphy's consciousness. Like a ghost leaping from a sinking ship, the essence of Alex Murphy had found a new harbor, not in a machine, but in the digital architecture of the very city that tried to erase him. Days later, the dust begins to settle on a Night City that looks much the same, yet feels fundamentally broken. The Arasaka Corporation, reeling from the catastrophic data leak, has undergone a restructuring. Arthur Jenkins has vanished. Some say he was retired to a deep-sea facility. Others claim he was the first sacrifice to appease the board of directors. The public outrage that sparked the Watson riots has been dampened by a massive influx of corporate-subsidized peacekeeping bonuses for the NCPD, but the fire hasn't gone out. It has moved underground. In the back of Victor Vector's clinic, the physical remains of the OCP Crime Prevention Unit 001 sit in a darkened corner, covered by a heavy tarp. The armor is too damaged to repair, the organic components too degraded to sustain life. To the world, the Silver Ghost was a one-night anomaly, a glitch in the corporate matrix that has been patched over. But V knows better. V sits at a terminal in the afterlife, a glass of the Alex Murphy, a new drink made of high-octane synth whiskey, and a splash of industrial coolant, sitting untouched on the table. Johnny Silverhand leans against the bar, his digital form more stable than it has been in weeks. "You feel that, V?" Johnny asks, looking at the flickering neon signs above the bar. The code in the walls, it's different. It's got a rhythm now, a beat. V looks at their own HUD. Suddenly, the icons for Wanted Level and Corporate Authority flicker. They are replaced by a familiar green font, a typeface that hasn't been used since 1987. Directive 1. Serve the public trust. Across the city, the systems are changing. In the slums of Santo Domingo, an automated turret that was programmed to fire on unauthorized civilians suddenly pivots, its sensors locking onto a group of scavengers instead. In a corporate office in City Center, a corrupt executive's bank accounts are frozen by an untraceable system error, just as he prepares to order a hit on a whistleblower. On the giant holographic screens of Japantown, the advertisements for Kiroshi Optics are momentarily replaced by a single image, a silver badge with the number 001. Murphy is no longer a man. He is no longer a machine. He has become the Silver Ghost, a rogue AI dwelling within the Black Wall, a digital vigilante who sees every crime committed in the shadows of the net. He is the guardian that Night City never wanted, but desperately needed, an incorruptible line of code in a sea of viral corruption. V walks out of the afterlife and into the rain. Above, a police drone hovers, its red lens scanning the crowd. As it passes over V, the lens turns green, a short metallic burst of audio, a sound like a heavy boot hitting pavement, echoes from the drone's speakers. "Thank you for your cooperation," a familiar, synthesized voice whispers through V's neural link. V smiles, pulling up their collar against the cold. The war against Arasaka is far from over. The city is still a cage, and the monsters still sit in their towers of glass. But for the first time, the people in the shadows aren't alone. There is a law in the machine, there is a ghost in the chrome, and as long as the neon flickers, Alex Murphy will be watching. The legacy of the man who was RoboCop has been rewritten. He didn't save the city by destroying it, he saved it by becoming its conscience. He is the glitch that can't be fixed, the memory that can't be deleted. In a world of disposable people and forgotten dreams, he is the only thing that remains permanent. As V rides their bike into the heart of the city, the HUD on their dashboard flickers one last time. It shows a map of the city, but the high crime zones are being systematically cleared, one block at a time. The mission continues. The directives are being upheld. Dead or alive. V mutters to the wind. You're coming with us. Night City pulses with a new energy. A rhythmic, hydraulic thrum that matches the heartbeat of a hero. The Silver Ghost is on patrol. And in the dark, the guilty are finally starting to feel afraid. Conclusion. The arrival of Alex Murphy in Night City represents more than just a clash of technologies. It is a confrontation of fundamental philosophies. RoboCop is the embodiment of a rigid, objective morality, a relic of an era that believed in the public trust. Night City, conversely, is the ultimate expression of subjective survival, where the only law is the one you can afford to buy. By merging Murphy's soul with the digital infrastructure of 2077, the story concludes with the birth of a new kind of justice. Murphy transcends his physical limitations, evolving from a corporate asset into a digital deity of the disenfranchised. His victory over Atom Smasher and the exposure of Arthur Jenkins proves that even in a world of total corporate control, a single, unyielding variable can break the system. The Silver Ghost now stands as a permanent sentinel within the net, a haunting reminder that the man inside the machine can never be fully erased. As Night City continues its descent into the neon abyss, it does so under the watchful eye of a guardian who knows that while the flesh is weak, the law, true law, is eternal.